Okay, we're ready to go. Welcome, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hi, and thank you for joining us for the 10th edition of the FCCI Cacao Academy Conversation Series. My name is Lauren Heineck, and I am of Well-Tempered Media, and I am here to help moderate with this wonderful series that has been going on for these last few weeks. If you're just joining us today, we hope that you'll dive into the other episodes that are available on the FCCI YouTube channel that have Spanish subtitles, and of course, follow along with us in the comments here today. This is a series of transparent dialogues and discussions that are going on behind the development of the project of the FCCI Cacao Academy, developed by co-founders Dr. Carla Martin, Harvard lecturer and executive director of the Fine Cacao and Chocolate Institute, and Alyssa Jade McDonald-Bertel of Cacao Academy. On today's show, which is August 26, 2020, we are joined by two special guests who have extreme expertise and experience in fieldwork of Latin America and Central America, specifically Nicaragua will be our focus today, on cacao quality, farmer training, and in general, the unique situations that the country is finding itself in. And we will kick off today's discussion with a quick discussion from the project co-founders of where they find themselves from last week's updates, and then we'll dive into a little bit more about our guests today. Thank you again for being here.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lauren. So we have exciting news, which is that the past 2 days were spent in a full-on in-studio experience producing some of the first digital training materials for the curriculum that will be rolling out in Nicaragua with our partners from Catholic Relief Services. And in particular, we did a series of detailed, we're calling them cacao glamour shots, producing images of, cacao from many different origins, looking at different defects in cacao, both external defects, cut test related defects, and more. And then recording videos and audio conversations that introduce people to some of the international standards on cocoa quality and flavor protocols that are in development. This is part of an effort to create a common language for stakeholders throughout the supply chain in order to evaluate quality in the same way together. Much of this work has already been introduced in different ways in Nicaragua. We'll learn some more about that from our guests today, but we're taking this a step further by developing these training materials so that they are far more accessible in a digital capacity, and so that they are also now calibrated with these developing protocols coming out of the international standards work.
Absolutely. It's been a fantastic couple of weeks. At the same time, we've also been developing the technology tools themselves. Most importantly, as we decide on what the curriculum and the methodology of FCCI Cacao Academy is, our first task is always to ask the farmers, what would you like and how would you like it? For example, in Nicaragua, the farmers there have told us that they enjoy to hear audio material. They enjoy to learn from conversations with friends and also from direct instruction from experts. So as Carla mentioned, we're producing these materials and going to be delivering them exactly in the way that the farmers want. To this end, we've been conducting with our team of 10, who is always with us and behind the scenes here, a research about what is the technology available, what works, what's got an interface, what's robust, what's available. We've made some short orders, so we're actually testing all of the technology in Europe and US at the same time, as well as in South America, seeing which ones really work, which ones the farmers like the feel of, what comes across well, and then mapping these together at the end. So it's very much about tech design, curriculum design, and bringing these two worlds together at the moment.
Thank you both. And now for our guests for the day. We have Jaume Martorell, who's joining us from Palma, the Balearic Islands in Spain, and he is of 123, and Dr. Lykke Andersen, who is on the line from Bolivia of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Jaume, would you start for a moment and introduce us a little further into your work and role at the company and past experiences?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very happy to stay here. Thank you for the invitation. As you said, I worked in cocoa in my last 10 years in Nicaragua, mainly. because I was the manager of purchase operations of retail sport in Nicaragua. Also, I work by Ricolto. It's an NGO from Belgium with the small farmers in Honduras and Nicaragua before retail. And after that, I started with 123. 123 is a company that has different farms in Latin America, medium and big size farms of cocoa. And we are developing with 123 the post-harvest protocols and advising about market and with the team of the sales team of cocoa and different products. Yeah, this is a very quick update of my work. Yeah.
Thank you. And Lykke is a leading economist and has written several papers on a very broad spectrum of various crops and agricultural systems in Latin America. Lykke, would you take a moment to introduce a bit more about yourself, please?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a research economist, and I've been working, I'm originally from Denmark, but I've been working in Latin America the last 25 years. And the last 3 years, I've been carrying out 2 living wage reports for the Global Living Wage Coalition in Nicaragua. And one of them was for the northwestern part of Nicaragua, which is where most of the agricultural production is. And the other one, the latest one, was for the free trade zone in Managua, the capital, for industrial workers, textile workers especially. So I've been traveling a lot around Nicaragua. It's a fantastic country, and and I'm very pleased to be in this webinar with you.
And I am so pleased to have an opportunity to learn more from all of you here. We're going to dive into the cocoa piece because that is the bulk of where this project stems from and why we're all here. Jaume, you spent a significant amount of your career there. Can you walk us through a little bit about the cocoa landscape in the country? What makes it unique in comparison to other cocoa producing countries surrounding it?
Yes, well, Nicaragua is I think the most important thing in Nicaragua is the genetic, the quality of the genetic. Yeah, it's a very, you know, that is a mix between Acriollado and Trinitarios varieties, because for the moment the small farmers develop the cocoa by seed without grafting, and this is a very difficult to know what is the special variety that there are, but the mix of this super diverse genetic is a very nice mix. Yeah, is good, and the ECCO recognized in 2015 the 100% of fine cocoa. I think in the last meeting last year reduced a little bit and 80%, because now there are big investments in Nicaragua. Big farms that invest, and I think that the argue is they use CCM51 in part of these big farms, and this is of course a very controversial point, the CCM51 versus another materials. Another point that I think is different in Nicaragua for other countries in the region is that there are a lot of cocoa farmers organized in cooperatives. There are, I think, in this moment, there are more than 60 cooperatives around the country, cocoa cooperatives, and a lot of these cooperatives has certifications as fair trade, foods, or organic, and allow that the farmers has to access to specific markets, or to formal markets, because in my study that I did in 2018, I can check that the farmers that don't stay in cooperative or in associations usually sell the cocoa in the informal market, with bad quality, less price, and the role that play this cooperative is very, very important in the country. Of course, Nicaragua has a lot of available land to plant more and more cocoa. There are a lot of capacity. More in the Caribbean side, because it's a flat lands and with a good climate for the cocoa, and there are now a good investments or a big investor that want to plant in Nicaragua. Now, regrettably, in the last 2 years, the investment has reduced for the political and social crisis. And of course, now is the biggest producer in Central America with good quality. There are the companies that recognize that as Rita Sport, but also Ingeman that wins a lot of prizes, the chocolate maker that use this cocoa. And another thing that I think is a competitive point, yeah, is regrettably for other countries, no, but is the low cadmium levels in the lands of Nicaragua, no, that this is good because now, as you know, that the regulations in the European Union, the cadmium issue is a problem, no. I think this is the most important point that is different from Nicaragua. Yeah.
Great overview. So in general, you'd say that there's a large amount of collaboration between the various cooperatives in the country in general to export fine cacao.
Yes, there are a lot of collaborations, yeah, and also as Carla said in the beginning, there are a lot of NGOs that try to improve the quality and the productivity of the farms and the cooperatives to access of these better markets. Yeah, I think more and more year than year the quality of the cocoa is improving, and there are less cocoa that goes to the informal markets. That usually this cocoa is unfermented and is addressed to Guatemala and El Salvador, mainly because in Guatemala and Salvador there are local factories and to do this kind of drinks that in Central America is common. That's horchatas and fresco de cacao, whatever. Yeah, and of course there are a commission, Cocoa Commission, sectorial Cocoa Commission, is led by APEN. APEN is an agency to promote the exportations and the private sector. I know that now the situation and the relationship with the government is a little bit cold. Yeah, it's normal because the COVID one part, but the 2 years ago the big socio-political crisis, the country locked down, and a lot of people died for this situation and strikes. But I know also that this sectorial commission is working a lot with different NGOs, Serie, MOCA project, and Ricolto, to do a strategy, a national strategy and regional strategy with other countries to develop the cocoa sector in the region. And I think this is a good point, because usually the Central America countries has a lot of is very similar, the cocoa, but there are different policies, and I think it's good to do the same protocol, the same policies, and the same markets to export, because it's a very nice cocoa in all Central America, of course.
I think this next question can be applied to both of you. You've both done such instrumental research and work in this region in developing new formats, or just diving further into the whys of what is going on behind the scenes. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on what some of the hurdles are regarding agricultural farmer extension training in Latin America or Central America.
Well, according to my research and my visits and travels around, especially the rural areas of Nicaragua, a lot of people don't have internet, and even electricity. Like 25% of households don't have electricity in the northwestern part of Nicaragua, and so obviously all these new technologies, many people will not be able to take advantage of them. Some of in the areas that is not connected to electricity, they have been doing a lot of effort to put solar panels, so that they at the very least can charge a cell phone and have some a bit of light in the house. But at least in some of the villages that I stayed at, people had to go up to the top of the mountain to get the signal. So they were all gathered up there to check their emails and their Facebook. But it's a huge improvement just to have that. And they do seem to be able to get WhatsApp and Facebook and just basic communication and network, which is really, really important for them to coordinate activities.
Yes, I'm agree with Lykke, and I think in the case of Nicaragua, the cocoa farms, the situation is worse, because in the story the cocoa crop in the agricultural revolution in the 80s was delegated to the worst or the farthest areas, in the mountains, in Guaslala, in the north of the country, in the Caribbean area. That in the Caribbean areas in the 1890s there aren't energy or electricity, whatever. And for this reason, the cocoa was a marginal crop. Now it's more important because the people know, and there are more promotion of the crop, and know that the cocoa is a very good cash crop, because there are each 15 days there are a harvest, and this harvest is paid very fast if you sell as fresh cocoa, and this is good for the economy of the family. But it's true that Lykke say that the people usually don't have internet in the farms, but for this reason I think it's more important the role that the cooperative and the associations do in Nicaragua, because sometimes or in the post-harvest center, usually is in places that there are connection to the energy and internet, and can use these places to do the trainings, or can do the places to do the different or send information or show information about YouTube or other new technologies. And about the trainings, I remember that one other point that is quite interesting in Nicaragua, there are a lot of tradition of the field schools. Usually there are the leader, the farmer leader, and usually the cooperative check that this farmer leader do a good practice, and each month or each 15 days there are a day in the farm, and usually I remember that Rita helped a lot with the cooperative for do this day with a funny day, but for learn. And after that there are a lunch with the farmers, and there are conversation with the farmer, which is your main problem, which is the point that you need to, and I think this field yields or events in the farms at the leader farm is a very good experience for the farmers, in my point of view.
Thank you. And to Jaume's point on family economies and livelihood, Lykke, you had a 2019 report on living wage in Nicaragua, and I would love to get into that a little bit further about some of your learnings there. In particular, that it was noticed that the living wage that is actually identified for the country, what is currently being recognized as the living wage, is 50% lower than it should be. And just to hear your thoughts about why that is, and how farmers can perhaps overcome some of those obstacles for their family and financial planning.
No, what we found in that study was that a decent wage, what they had to earn to pay basic expenses and a decent livelihood, is 50% above the minimum wage. Everybody in Nicaragua earns the minimum wage, and some earn more. But we calculated that in general for the agricultural workers, we would need to increase the incomes with about 20% to reach a living wage. And so right now, of course, they cannot spend more money than they are earning in the long run, so they have to cut. And what we have seen by visiting all the a lot of homes in Nicaragua, both in the rural areas and in the urban areas, is that what they cut down on is the quality of housing, and they kind of face a trade-off. So they almost 95% have their own house, they don't rent, and they can either build a big house but of very flimsy materials, like very flimsy material. They have a decent roof, flimsy walls, and no floor, so dirt floor. Or they can build a small house of better materials, but then the whole family just lives in one room, which also does not meet the minimum requirements, because the anchor methodology that we use require that there can be no more than 2 people per room in a house, and many times they live like 4 or 5 in one room, or sometimes with a basic sheet separating the rooms. So so it's mostly the housing that they compromise on. The food, because they live on rice, beans, and corn tortillas for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So, and that's really quite nutritious and cheap, and they cook it themselves on wood stoves. So usually the kitchen is outside the house because it generates so much smoke. And the bathrooms are also usually outside the house, in the backyard. Latrine, and they don't have showers because they don't have hot water, and it's not nice to get cold showers, so they prefer to use just a bucket and wash with a washcloth. So that's more or less how they manage with the lower than decent income that they are earning now.
Thank you so much for outlining that for us. I'd like to follow on that line and expand beyond the household into something that each of your research touches on. I was especially impressed in Jaume's research that he's one of the few researchers focusing on a cacao value chain who mentions issues like security that might be a problem for Nicaraguan families, of course, for many families in cocoa growing regions. And I wonder if whichever of you would like to respond to this, if you could speak to the issue of security and how it might impact farmer livelihoods. I'll give you an example. When conducting a training in Nicaragua, the NGO workers that we were collaborating with were expressing frustration. They said, we've worked with cacao farmers, we've explained to them what ripe pods look like versus unripe or overripe pods. We want them to harvest these pods when they're ripe, but they're not doing it, and we can't understand why. And so we said, well, we've got to go and ask them, that they're the ones who know. They're rational people. Surely there's something going on here that's logical. And it was a very simple conversation to determine that farmers were actually harvesting pods unripe. So they were harvesting them too early because in their region, in the particular area where we were working, there would be people who would come and steal those pods overnight when they were unripe, or at a moment when they were not being tended. And so the simple question of cocoa quality was not as simple as the NGO workers thought it might be. And it was really a security problem, a social problem, rather than a knowledge or a motivation problem that was impacting these farmers' ability to contribute to cacao quality. So I wonder if you might speak more about security in these contexts and how they can impact farmer livelihoods.
Yes, I am agree with you, Carla. I live this situation in Nicaragua, and year than year the safety has been worse, and the farmers in several areas, as for example Triángulo Minero, Ciuna, Bonanza, and Rosita, and Guaslala, usually is areas that there are a lot of still, yeah, the pots, yeah, the people. And there are two reasons that this happen, yeah, because the cocoa in Nicaragua is very easy to sell, yeah. You can buy cocoa and sell to whatever trader, call it coyote, yeah, in Nicaragua, that buy whatever quality and bad quality and whatever cocoa. This is more difficult in coffee, because in coffee there are regulation in Nicaragua that you need a guideline, no, a guideline to sell your cocoa, yeah. And yeah, there are people that take the risk that buy a coffee with a guideline, but this is a problem usually with the police, yeah. But in cocoa there aren't this regulation, yeah. And of course, after 2018, with this huge socio-political situation, yeah, the people lose the trust in the police, yeah. There are a lot of problems. The people say, I stole in my farm or in my house and don't want to put the I don't know in English, the denuncia. I don't want to go to the police to say that, because the police is corrupt and there are problems with that. And of course, I think this is a problem because you lose part of your production. And by other hand, the point that you say, Carla, you need to cut unripe pots, and of course your quality is worse, yeah? And the cooperative or your client pay less money for this cocoa, yeah? I think this is a situation that I put in my report, and I think in the new policy or sectorial study that the Comisión de Cacao want to develop, I think is a point that need coordination with the government, because if not, is very difficult on that. And also, there are a lot of cocoa farmers that goes to United States or to migrate for the socio-political situation, yeah. And I know for my friends in Nicaragua, a good farmer that has family in US and say leave the farm to other family and go to States, because there are problems with the Frente Sandinista, because the farmer was activist against the government, and this is another big problem actually.
That's very interesting to hear, and we can now continue, I think, to learn about digital tools and maybe knowing about these insecurities and knowing about some of the challenges that the families and the cocoa farmers face. What tools have you seen be implemented, even perhaps with now COVID being an issue in the country, that they're turning to these methods, whether via WhatsApp or Facebook, to educate and to offer farmer training given the certain situations?
Well, of course, I have 2 years that I stay here in Europe, and I don't live the COVID situation in person there. But I know that now there are certain companies that there are more and more communication by WhatsApp, for example, for the prices, yeah, for the organization of the purchase. For example, this is the point for the purchase, and this is the price for this year. But in the same line that the last point, this is a little bit complicated also for the security, no? This is they use a sure channels or assure people that send information to other farmers. I have to say that there are a nice program in Nicaragua that use iPhones or intelligent phones for the weather. Yeah, this is a program financed by BIT, Inter-American Bank, with Ingeman and Christian Aid, and develop a software, yeah, or app that sent to the technicians of the cooperatives, and each day or each 2-3 days information about the weather, the rainings for the next days in different areas, and I think this is very useful for the technicians and for the farmers to inform, yeah, to the farm for the next conditions, environmental conditions. And I repeat, I think for have more impact in these initiatives, I think the role of the technicians and the people of the cooperative is in Nicaragua especially is very, very important. Yeah, for the point that Lykke say that there aren't internet in a lot of areas because the geography is very loops, yeah, and there are a lot of mountains, and it's very difficult to develop with all the farmers and don't have connection to the internet. Yeah.
And have either of you seen any programs that have been dedicated towards certain minorities, whether that be the older generations of farmers, younger generations, women?
I haven't seen any of the specific programs, but I think this way of training through the cooperatives is very, very efficient, and that would include 3 generations typically. I've also been doing a living wage study in Colombia, and there one of the biggest problems was that the younger generation was not interested in continuing in agriculture. They wanted to go study and have and become professionals. So the lack of there was just not a new generation to take over, and that was one of the biggest problems in the banana sector, especially in Colombia. Yeah, but the only way you can fix that is to make sure that wages are increasing so that it becomes more and more attractive, at least to keep the sector functioning, because we want our coffee and we want our bananas and we want our chocolate. So
this is very true. Absolutely hit on the key point again and again when we think about intergenerational training or opportunities for gender equality within cacao. Fundamentally, it always comes back to, is this an interesting opportunity for this person to do? And certainly the work that you have both done, both in living wage and access and opportunity in cacao in Nicaragua, demonstrates functionally it is a very difficult and a very hard life to live in cacao farming there. And we heard recently a few weeks ago in this conversation series from Anthony Fountain from the Voice Network. He was referring to a farmer he was speaking to recently who said the best fertilizer and the best growth material for cacao is living wage. That all of the talk about crop productivity and this flower in this way and all of the science and all of the development that exists fundamentally coming down to how much can I take home to my family, and what I am taking home, for example, through living wage, is that sufficient for a decent living, and describing what decent living is. This is fundamentally, certainly, I think the key thing that we see in Nicaragua.
I have two comments or 3 comments about the groups in Nicaragua, yeah, because I think, as I say, Lykke, the example in Colombia and Nicaragua is totally the same, yeah. But now there are some programs that try to keep the young people in the farm, yeah. For example, I know the program of Ricolto that have with the Cooperativa La Campesina in the north of the country is a very nice program, because in the first idea 2 or 3 years ago, the idea is that the farmer, the father of the young people, gave 1-2 hectares to the young guy, or of course the son of the daughter, yeah, and start to develop this program with better technology, with better productivity. And there are a very nice agreement with Colruyt. Colruyt is a very important supermarket in Belgium, yeah, and this supermarket buy all this cocoa. Is more or less is 1 container, it's 12 tons per year of these young people farmers, and do a special chocolate, yeah, for the supermarket. And this is a very nice program. I see that the young people is very compromised, has a lot of commitment with the cooperative, and the idea is also is to create this nexus with between the cooperative and the young people. Yeah. Also in Nicaragua, there are another group that is interesting to talk, is the indigenous group. Yeah, because there are a lot of indigenous people, Miskitos and Mayagnas, in the North Caribbean coast that has a lot of cocoa. But in my opinion, the last, and I know the experience in Honduras with the Miskitos because I worked with them. And the problem is not the group, the indigenous group. It's more that the curriculum that we want to develop with them, because we want to translate the same curriculum that the Criollo people or the typical farmer to these areas. And of course, the way to thinking of these groups is totally different than the other groups. And I think there are a lot of potential because in Nicaragua, these groups has a lot of land. Yeah, it's a communitary land, and there are a lot of opportunity to develop good areas of cacao in this case. But I think the NGO that want to help and the government want to try to adapt the curriculum and the work to these groups. And in the case of the women, in my 10 years in Nicaragua, I saw, as in the cooperative, more and more the women has a more participative role. And in my opinion, when a cooperative balance the borders with women, the meetings and the negotiations was more easier. It was easier because there are I don't know, but the women, they are more sensitive and more clear that the rules, yeah. In my case, yeah, in the case of the negotiation with the contract. And also, I know that the NGOs now is going to work with the woman for the credit lines, for example. It's more the woman has more compromise to return the payments, yeah, that the man. And yeah, I think if I had to choose indigenous, young, and women, I think they are more advanced with the woman sector. But of course, we need to improve a lot in these cases.
I'm so glad you mentioned that piece on cultural sensitivities. We've spoken about that before on these episodes, and it is very important in curriculums to consider that piece. And also that you mentioned accessibility and how to help give access. Jaume, I know you've spoken very passionately about offering setups to cocoa farmers that improve cocoa quality control, whether that be via mini labs or even within post-harvesting processing. Could you speak to some instances of where you found that to be beneficial in Nicaragua and how that's improved their own learning or price or etc.?
Yes, of course. Yes, I am convinced that the small farmers organized need to centralize the post-harvest, yeah. And this is, for example, one of the problems, in my opinion, that I know now more countries in Colombia, for example. Colombia, each small farmer develop the post-harvest in the farm, and this is very difficult to control uniformity and the quality, no. Yeah, and in this case, I am agree that the cooperative or the companies or the group of farmers has to have a post-harvest center centralized, that the fresh cocoa arrive to this post-harvest center, and you can develop protocols for all the mass of the cocoa in the fermentation and the dry. And I think it's better for the quality, and in my point of view, if the prices are good, it's better also for the small farmer, because the farmer know that only has to, as Carla say, I need only to cut the pot in the best moment, put in the plastic box or in the plastic bag, and go to the cooperative. And in some time, the cooperative, if you live near the street, the cooperative have trucks and go very, very close, no? And this is more easy, has the money faster, yeah, because if the farmer has to ferment and dry in the farm, you need 15-21 days, yeah, to receive the money for the selling. and also I need to go with the horse or with my car or with my to the market, to the local market, and sell the cocoa. And I think for the small farmers is the best solution is that, because it's different for a medium and big farm, of course, because it has condition and has a central post-harvest. But and you allow with this post-harvest center centralized to develop different protocols. And I know that now MOCA project prepare a flavor map, and this is very interesting because I know that in some cases it's the same cocoa that the cooperative sell to retail, but with other protocol you have another product, and it's the same cocoa. Yeah, and this is very interesting. Very interesting because you have another. You open your opportunities in the market, and of course I am very agree that the cooperative and the post-harvest center has to develop these capacities. For example, if you visit Nicaragua and visit Ingeman do a very great job with this point. Catch the fresh cocoa, go to his company, and has a lot of protocol with the same cocoa, with a lot of take all the data, environmental data, temperature, humidity, and do a very great job. And I think this is possible if there are a very good curriculum and a very good training for the people that work in the post-harvest center. And my last point is a hurdle for the post-harvest center also in the cooperative is that the manager of the post-harvest center in Nicaragua earn a salary, very, very poor salary. And there are a lot of rotation of these people. And this is a problem also because you need to establish a very good team. Yeah. And in my point of view is a very important person, the person that manage the post-harvest. No? And this is a point that also in retail, we talk about a lot with the borders of the cooperative and the manager and say, hey guys, the guy that do the quality is your best resource that you have. Please pay a good salary and has a good condition, because if not, go to the competition and go to other side. I think this is very, very important.
And Lykke, in some of your work, you've touched on the impediments that might impact cocoa quality. And within that, one of the things that was referenced in something you wrote about coffee, and I might need to read here because it was very specific, but according to social security and natural disasters that might impact, therefore, the living environments of people that are vulnerable without certain elements in place. Could you talk a little bit further about what you found there regarding that piece?
Yeah, well, Nicaragua is located in a very complicated place, exposed to hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and basically they have no security or anything. So these things happen, and the way that I have found that families tend to deal with this risk is to send at least one migrant to another country, so that if something happens in that location, then the migrant will be able to help out. Indeed, the only houses and homes of decent quality with a floor and windows and everything, all the basic things that you would want in a house, they all had at least one migrant abroad, and that was what allowed them to invest in a decent house for the family in Nicaragua. So this migration strategy is very, very important for Nicaragua. It's by far the biggest export product they have, that's labor. Coffee is the next biggest, but labor, the remittances that come back are 3 times more than the income from export of coffee. And most people live in Costa Rica, next a neighboring country, and work as agricultural farmers, as help in the houses. They're very, very considered very good labor. They actually earn more than than Costa Rican workers because they just work so hard, and so they're so reliable. But most remittances, I think, come from United States. So that for them, it's a better strategy to send people to United States because they just manage to earn more money. But that's a strategy for dealing with risk in a situation where you cannot insure in any other way.
Yeah, thank you both for your thoughts here. I had one additional question. It comes up in both of your research in different ways, which is, related to these natural disasters or major changes in, for example, climate. Nicaragua, of course, we know is one of the most climate change impacted countries and is experiencing some acute impacts where we're seeing a large transition of coffee farmers to cacao growing when coffee is no longer suitable at certain lower altitudes where they're working. And of course, there's been some really interesting research done on changes in precipitation, potential unsuitability of different land for either coffee or cacao in future years. And I wonder if you might speak to some of these impacts that you found in your own research.
Well, in the study in 2018, I worked with SIAT. Yeah, SIAT has a very nice study for Central America for the adaptation of the climate with this simulation for 2030 and 2050. Yeah, and as you say, Carla, is a reality, and I think the point between the coffee and the cocoa is very, very fast. Yeah, last week I had a call with a colleague that is a exporter of coffee and say me, hey Jaume, I started to buy cocoa because all my medium and big farms that has in the medium low altitude the coffee is changing the coffee by the cocoa because the conditions, the weather is very complicated in the low areas, and more and more the coffee is going up, and the substitution, because it's quite easy to substitute coffee by cocoa because normally the agroforestry system is similar and the conditions for the weather is similar. But I only want to say that in the SIAT study, if I don't remember bad, the 30-35% of the suitable area for the cocoa won't be good for cocoa in 2050. Yeah, of course for coffee the reduction is drastically, but for this reason I think the farmers has to start to analyze the situation and the place that is ubicated for do activities, yeah, to reduce a little bit this risk. Yeah, maybe to try to invest in more shadow, or to try to invest in a very traditional irrigation system, or depends of course of each area. But I think is a point that all the programs to help farmers of cocoa, governmentals and NGOs want to work, because it's a reality, and this is not to stop it.
Thank you. And I'm curious, we're speaking so much about the farmers from the perspective of research, but from your points of view, or have you seen any examples of when farmers have been included in policy development, if their voice is represented?
Well, in Nicaragua, I think the representation of the farmers to talk with the private sector and the government the capacity is very, very low. Yeah, I say in the 2-3 years ago, a group of NGOs and helped to create the Cani Cacao. Cani Cacao is a farmer chamber of farmers, but of course this chamber start to work with cooperation funds, yeah, with grants of the international cooperation. And I know that in the last 2 years, the activity of this chamber is very low, because don't have money for advance and for do some things. Yeah, but the organization is quite interesting, because the idea is to put in this chamber all the cooperative and of the small farmers. Yeah. Of course, there are the sectorial commission of the cacao. That the idea is this sectorial commission, that the leading is by APEN, that is the promotion of exportations and the private sector. The idea is that this commission will be the interlocutory with the government, but actually this relationship is very difficult. Yeah, and in my point of view now, the voice of the farmer or the cocoa farmer in Nicaragua is not very, yeah, it's not very sound. Yeah, because it's quite complicated. But there are the mechanisms to do a great job. But I think we need more efforts for the private sector. Of course, I think the big farms and the big investments or big companies as Ritesport, Ecom, and the new farms that, for example, Cacao Oro is a farm of 3,000 hectares in the North Caribbean. I think this kind of actors, it have the sensibility of want to develop the country and work with the small farmers. Maybe it's a loop for arrive to this governmental or private sector, because these people can to talk with the government and can to talk with another institutions. But the small farmer actually is quite difficult.
Lykke, have you had a similar experience, even if that is regarding other agricultural crops that you've researched?
Not so much in Nicaragua, but I had a very nice experience in Colombia, where a region really managed to collaborate between the producers, the workers, the local government, and fair trade helped a lot, really, to get a positive circle going. And you can just see the difference between of outcomes in regions where they manage to collaborate, and in regions where they tend to clash instead. And so yeah, it's yeah, I don't know how they managed it, but 30 years of collaboration between all the actors just made a world of a difference instead of fighting. So
we're getting close to our hour here of discussions. I would turn it over to Liz or Carla for a moment if they have any questions regarding where we are in peer training. Otherwise, we can move on to some final questions.
From my perspective, all my questions have been covered, but Liz, please go ahead if anything stands out to you.
No, I'm very grateful. I think we got significant input regarding farmer representation, the role of intergenerational and minorities. This has been very, very fruitful and absolutely going to feed directly into our programming and decisions for Nicaragua. Thank you very, very much.
Great. Okay, so as we both had prepped you on, we offer 2 questions at the end of these episodes to get a better understanding or a quick summary of where you are with your thoughts today. And the first question I would like to ask you both is, if you had a message to put on a billboard, what would you like to say? Jaume, would you go first?
Well, I go first. I suppose that Lykke talk about the wage income. I do about the post-harvest or the quality. I think my message is good chocolate only is possible with good cocoa. Yeah, and I am very convinced. Yeah, that the way that we have to do is this chocolate artisan chocolate makers and Bean2Bar is a very small sector, but has a very great job. And I think this movement has allowed to change to the big industry, because I know I see in Ritesport, I see in other big companies that now I have contacts that there are the necessity to change and to work with a better raw material. Yeah, this is a very long trip. It's a very long trip, but I think this is the the trip that we need to do, yeah, to work with the good quality of cocoa to have a very good chocolate.
Yes, indeed. My concern is about the wages. I think cacao farmers are essential workers as well, and like all the essential workers, they really need to earn a decent wage, and we have to work on the whole supply chain and the consumers to make sure that happens.
Yes. And I will just offer quickly that for those that are more interested in the topic, please go back and see episode 5. That is where we spoke further about living income and living wage. And now to our final question for the day. Lykke, I'll start with you now. If you could please respond to how the audience, those listening, those who watch this down the line, or us here in this room today can better support your work. What can we do?
Well, I personally don't need support, but I think you should support the farmers that are and the first in the chain of everything that we consume. Just all the consumers be conscious about all the work, all the resources that go into everything that you consume, and sometimes you just throw away. I guess that doesn't apply to cacao. I have never seen anybody throw away chocolate, but in general, less waste and just more fairness in the supply chain.
No, in my opinion, I think it's good to continue to work to show to the people, to the cocoa sector and chocolate sector, the good initiatives, the good projects, how the projects and the organization and the farmer can do a good job. There are best examples in each country, and I think the role of FCCI is to show to the audience and to the cocoa people to know about this. For example, I am very interested to know more for this kind of report that do all the documentaries in Kenya, in Tanzania, in others, with a small company that do a very great job, that pay better prices, that do a very good work with the productivity. I think is a very interesting, and always with a scientific and very contrast opinions, and not only do a club to say, okay, I defend only the bean to bar sector because but you need to do with a lot of information, and I think the work that you are doing is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for being here. We learned so much from you. I wish that we had time to quote, piece after piece after piece from your reports. You should know that in our writing we do that, and we'll share that with you when it's ready. And we're really very grateful for all that you've shared and all that we're able to learn. Thank you for your time and for all of your work.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Pleasure.
See you all soon. Back next Wednesday.